Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 Buick Envista, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Smart Diode Wiring Kit. Before we do that though, let's take a minute, check it out, make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in, I do want to address one of the main questions that we get asked in regards to setting up your Buick to be flat-toed, and that's what parts am I going to need? So there's 5 major components. You'll have your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your tow bar wiring, and your supplemental braking system. And for the Envista, I also like to recommend the Roadmaster automatic battery disconnect switch. This is a really good example on how the tow bar wiring is going to work. What it's going to do is transfer the lighting functions from the back of your coach to the back of your Buick. That way people know what's going on and you're safe and legal, right? So we have the flashers going on our coach. Both of our lights on the Buick are flashing in sync with it. And the same is going to hold true for your left turn, your right turn, your brakes, and your tail lights. So you'll have all of your bases covered there. We've set up quite a bit of vehicles with these smart diodes, and the reason that I like them is once they're actually installed, they don't take away from the look of your vehicle. You know, it's all pretty hidden for the most part, and they're extremely reliable. You know, every now and again we get one that comes back with a small problem, but for the vast majority of the vehicles, at least in my experience, everything works like it should with no issues. And the way that the power is going to get sent to the back where your lights are on your Buick is through this cable here. So it'll plug into your motorhome's 7-way. And those functions will get sent back through here into the front where you have your 6-way connector hooked up. And so that's all you're going to have to do to set up your lights when you are ready to hook up and everything. You know, just plug those 2 ends in, and that's really all there is to it. There are 2 different versions of this wiring, if you will. One of them that comes with the wiring, the diodes, some ins and outs, the connector plug, and this cable here, and that's the one that we're using today. And so you would want to use this if you don't have the cable or the 6-way connector already, right? Now there is another option that comes with everything I just talked about except the cable and the connector, and that's because some of the more premier tow bars out there a lot of times come with those components already, like the Roadmaster Nighthawk, for example. So if that's what you got, what type of tow bar you got that comes with it already, or if you have the components, then you could use more of that bare bones type kit, right? Because you don't really need to buy parts that you already have. But other than that, at the end of the day, really nice setup. You know, like I said, they're extremely reliable. They're not going to affect your Buick's factory wiring, you know, cause any harm to it or make it not work, things of that nature. So, you know, probably the best bet for the Buick, at least in my opinion. As far as the installation goes, it's not really that it's really complicated per se, but it's definitely time consuming. Just having to route your wiring from the front to the back, get up in behind the taillights and things like that. So take your time, stay focused. Hopefully our installation video can help you out if you plan on doing it at home. If not, if it's something you don't want to mess with, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood near you that can do something like this for you. But if you're gonna give it a go, hang around, we'll go ahead, pull into the garage and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our tow bar wiring, I got the hood popped and we have the fascia removed because we're doing the same time that we're doing our base plate, which is what I recommend. Makes it a lot easier to route wires and stuff, but can't be done with everything put back together. Very first thing you wanna do though is grab the big bundle of wiring here, take one end of it, we're going to drop it straight down, and we need to run this over to the front of the vehicle, and it's just all loosely routed right now. So eventually, once everything's kind of wrapped up, we'll come back and clean everything up. But I have it running over here, and I just taped it to our bracket, and that's because the way that this particular vehicle set up with this base plate, I think it'll be more beneficial to have the wires kind of ready to go. Get the fascia on, push the wires through, and then hook up the connector plug, as opposed to having to cut out a bunch of material on the front of the fascia for it to clear the connector plug. So That's what my plan is, and we'll get that done real quick. Let's simply get our fascia on, and now we can get the wiring hooked up to the connector plug. So first thing I like to do is take the little rubber boot that comes with the connector plug. We'll slide that over the wires. And then we just want to very carefully separate each wire. And then we'll peel them back a little ways. And what I like to do, I'm going to bring them all back together here and cut 1/4 inch or so off, give us a fresh start. That way if we nicked one of the wires or something, you know, we don't have to worry about that. And we're going to strip each wire back about like that. And you want to twist them all so the strands are tight together. That'll make sure we get a good connection. It's a little bit easier to get the wires into the terminals too. So we'll grab our connector plug, and the way these work, these terminals, they just use set screws. So you want to take a small screwdriver and back them out almost all the way. And we're only going to be using 4 of them. They are labeled, might be a little tricky to see, but this is TM for taillights, so the brown wire goes there. This is GD for ground, so white wire goes there. We have LT for left turn, yellow wire plugs in there. RT for right turn, the green wire goes there. And so we'll take the appropriate wire. We'll just start with our taillights. They'll just get pushed into the terminal, and you kind of hold it down. And then just snug up that set screw. That'll complete the connection. So we'll just work our way around here until we get all of them hooked up. Here's what the back of the connector plug looks like once you have it all hooked up. And something that I like to do is come back with some silicone and apply it all to the back of the terminals. That way it'll dry and keep everything completely sealed, you know, preventing corrosion and any issues along those lines. So blob that on there. Take the rubber plug now. Push that into place. I just put some wire loom over everything to help it blend in a little bit better. Clean up our excess silicone there. I'll just kind of tuck this back. And it looks like I might have to maybe bend these tabs down a little bit, as they're just kind of pushed back in there a little too far to clear everything. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab a tool or something and kind of just bend these down some so we can secure this. So I found it worked pretty good. Just grab a socket. This is a 10mm and an extension, and that goes right around those little arms, if you will. You can get some extra leverage to pry down on them. And that seems like it'll work there. Go down just a little bit more. Get this all lined up and secured down here. With the front connector all taken care of now, we can move back to the engine compartment, and we need to ground this white wire. And so On the driver's side, there's a ground stud, should work out real well. So what you want to do is cut just a white wire to length. And we'll separate the white wire from the rest of the harness. And the end that you want to work with is the one that's going to the connector plug, right? And so how we're going to make all of our connections, whether it be a ring terminal or a butt connector, spade terminal, you strip back the insulation on that wire and you give it a twist. Then you take the connector, put that over the bare end, and we'll crimp this down. And then we can remove this with a 10 millimeter. Put this over the stud there. And get the nut tightened back down. Then as far as the remaining portion of white wire that's still connected to the harness, we'll go ahead and just peel that off completely. And we'll hold on to it because chances are pretty good we'll probably use it a little bit later on in the installation process. I continued to route our wiring towards the back of the vehicle, and so what I've done is just dropped it straight down along our firewall to the bottom side. And whenever you're routing wires in general, you know, you always want to do your best to make sure and avoid hot or moving parts. Underneath of our vehicle, this is where our wiring comes down, and I just use some zip ties every now and again to keep it secure. But I just followed some of these factory lines pretty much all the way back. It's pretty convenient that these are all open and everything. And then I kind of started to go towards the outside of the vehicle and kind of up through this little gap here. So it just goes up and over our subframe. On here, and I tried to keep it tucked as tight as I could to this factory wire loom just to keep it away from our exhaust. And what I did, since I didn't really have nothing to secure the wiring to, I took the wiring, put maybe a 2-foot piece of wire loom on it, pushed it through this hole in the frame rail where it comes out here. So at this point here, I took the green wire and separated it from the yellow and brown, and that green wire will run over to the passenger side along with that extra piece of white wire that we saved. All right, and this white wire is going to have to tie into the brown wire. So that brown wire I cut in half very carefully and strip the ends back. And so what you're going to do is take one end of the white wire, strip it back, and you're going to twist these two ends together. And more or less we're just tapping into this brown wire to get the taillight signal for our passenger side. And then I'm going to take a butt connector, put it over the bare ends, and I did upgrade to a heat shrink style butt connector because the ends seal up and just help against corrosion a little bit better, so you can always do that if you want. But the one that comes with it will work fine too. Just tape it up real good. I crimp that down, and then for the other end, the brown wire, since we're just putting one wire in this end, I stripped it long and then folded it over, make it a little bit thicker, get a better bite. Get it crimped. And then with these, you can come back with your heat source and seal them up. After making that connection, I just taped it up real good, and then just kind of zip tied yellow and brown wire up here. We'll just kind of let it hang for now. Eventually that'll go up in the taillight pocket. But as far as the other end of the white and green wire, that just runs along through here behind our bumper. Kind of doing the same thing. Comes out in this area. I just got it tucked up there for now. We need to get our taillights out so you can open up the hatch, and I believe these lights don't actually unplug, and so that's why I put all this painter's tape here. So if you have to kind of lean it over, it's not going to scratch up the paint. But the way we can get our lights out, you have these two little covers there. You just pry those open with a little pick or a screwdriver, and that'll expose a T15 Torx bit screw. Get those pulled out, and we can start to work our light out. So you just want to do a little bit of side-to-side motion, more or less just try to loosen things up. But primarily you're going to be pushing the light towards the back of the vehicle. These are in here pretty tight. Carefully get this popped out. Just pull that out to give us more room. And what we'll do too, this little grommet here, if you pull that out, it'll buy us a little more length. What you can do now in the kit, it comes with two short pieces of white wire. You can take one of them, one end crimp on a spade terminal, the other end crimp on a ring terminal. Then you can use one of the self-tapping screws, and this is going to get grounded here, so we're just going to secure it right here. You can check and figure out what wire or wires we need to work with for our taillight signal. That's what we're looking for here. And so I have our tail lights on, and I took my test light and attached it to the ground that we just hooked up. That way we can kind of get 2 for 1, make sure that's a solid ground. And I just removed the tape off the wires, so we can get to them a little bit easier. We're just going to check each wire for a signal here. So this gray one, or I'm sorry, the brown one with the blue stripe that has a signal, as well as this green one. So there's a green one with a gray stripe. And I believe there's 2 of them because there's 2 tail lights, if you will, in our tail light. We have the main one and there's one on the side. And so we're just going to tie into both of these. You can take these 2 wires now and make sure your tail lights are turned off. But we're going to cut those in half, and then we'll strip back each end. And kind of like we did a moment ago underneath, we'll twist the 2 ends together. Try to get as tight as you can. I'll take one of these spade terminals. Get that crimped down. I'm going to do the same exact thing for these 2 ends. You can grab your diode now, and where it says car out, that's where you're going to hook up the end closest to our light, the factory wires, like that. Where it says ground. Then get plugged in to that terminal. Then you'll have car in. Put this side there. Now all that's left to do, we can go underneath, push our wiring that we left under there up here and get them hooked up. I got our wiring into the taillight pocket. It's pretty open underneath, so you could probably push the wires straight up through here if you have someone else to kind of be up top and grab them. If not, you can always take a metal coat hanger or something, straighten it out, drop it from the top down, tape your wires to it, and pull it right into place. But I stripped these ends back, crimped on the terminals just like we did the other ones, and the new brown wire, that'll get plugged into RV tail end, and the new yellow wire, that'll get connected to RV break-in. So what I've done now, I just secured the diode using a zip tie to our factory harness. And then something I like to do is take a little bit of silicone and just put it over where the connections are made there. Help keep moisture out and stuff, and kind of help keep them connected a little bit too, I would imagine. But now we could just kind of carefully tuck everything back in. Get this tape out of the way, and we'll just reinstall our light. Whenever you're doing this, just make sure you're not gonna, pinch any wires. Just take your time, get everything lined up. Over here on the passenger side, set everything up pretty much the same way, The new green wire, that'll go to RV break-in. The new white wire, that'll go to RV tail end. The car end will be your factory brown wire with the blue stripe, and the factory green wire with the, I believe it was a brown stripe. You tie both them ends together, put it in, car out, just completes the factory wires there. And then the small ground wire set up the same way. So what I'll do now, I'll get these sealed up and get everything put back together. With everything hooked up now, it's a good idea to test the wiring to make sure that it's working properly. I'm plugged into a test box here, which simulates a motorhome. You can use your coach, but keep in mind if it happens to have any issues on its own, it could mislead you, thinking it's something you did wrong on the vehicle side. But we'll run through all of our functions now. We'll turn on our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. With it all working, that'll do it for our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Smart Diode Wiring Kit on our 2024 Buick Envista.